My name is Humphrey. I come from the gutters, the slums where hope dies before the sun rises. The place where young boys don't grow old. They either rot in jail or the grave swallows them too early. That was my home, the neighborhood where banger smoke floated in the air like incense to a false god. Every corner was a trap. Every street was a battlefield. You couldn't walk 10 steps without hearing bottles break, insults fly, or blood hit the ground. In the night, the smell of roasted corn mixed with sweat, with urine and the smoke of cheap drugs. I was part of it all. We used to gather under a broken street light, me and the others, vandals, addicts, boys who had no future. We laughed with broken teeth, shared cigarettes and joints rolled from the cheapest banger. We talked big dreams but lived small lives. If you didn't belong to a gang, you were prey. If you didn't smoke, you were mocked. If you didn't steal, you went to bed hungry. I was lost in that smoke, my eyes red, my soul black. That night was like every other. We sat on the corner, passing the joint, boasting about women, money we didn't have, fights we hadn't won. But then came the flashing lights, police vans roaring in like wolves. They jumped out with batons, guns, shouting. We scattered, but the street was blocked from both ends. I felt a hand grab me from the back of my neck and slam me into the depth. Another blow hit my ribs. I heard screams, boots kicking flesh, bottles shattering. Drug boys, thieves, they shouted, dragging us into the van. I tried to say I was innocent, but what is innocence in the mouth of a slum boy? Nobody listened, nobody ever listens. That was the night the slum swallowed me whole and spat me into prison. Prison was not a place for men. It was a grave for the living. The walls sweated misery and the floor smelled of urine, blood and forgotten souls. The guards looked at us like animals. We were packed in like cattle, bodies pressed against bodies. Some were mad, some were broken, some were killers with cold eyes that never blinked. At night, I couldn't sleep. I could hear whispers, cries, and sometimes laughter, the kind that makes your blood run cold. Food was a watery porridge that smelled like ashes. Fights broke out every day. Sometimes for food, sometimes for respect, sometimes for nothing. I kept my head down. I learned silence. But in that silence, something grew inside me. A thought, a fire, a whisper that said, Humphrey, you must not die here. You must not end here, in prison. Time is a cruel teacher. You learn to count your sins. You learn to measure your hunger. You learn that a man can live on nothing but a thought. I began to think hard. I thought about life outside. I thought about the boys who never made it. I thought about how everything we chased, drugs, gangs, fake power, was only a chain around our necks. I began to draw plans in my mind. I had no pen, no paper, but my memory became my notebook. I thought of small businesses, of ways to survive with dignity. I thought of how to escape the chains of poverty, the curses of the slums. By the time my sentence was over, I was no longer just Humphrey the addict. I was Humphrey with a fire in his head. They released me at dawn. No one was there waiting. No mother, no father, no friend. When I reached home, I thought maybe, just maybe, they would forgive me. But the truth cut deeper than prison ever did. My mother turned her face away. My father spat on the ground. The neighbors whispered, ex-convict, useless boy. The doors of my family house were closed to me. I was a stranger where I was born. I slept in an uncompleted building that night on bare cement, with rats as my brothers. Rainwater dripped through the roof. The cold beat into my bones, but I whispered to myself, this is not the end. This is the beginning. That rain became my kingdom. No door, no window, no bed, but it was mine. I cleaned a corner, laid a piece of cardboard and called it home. There, I began my new life. I would wake before dawn, sit on the broken wall and let the sun rise on me like a blessing. My belly was empty, but my mind was full. I started moving. I went to the markets, watching sellers. I studied them, how they spoke, how they called customers, how they handled money. I didn't have a franc, but I had eyes, and eyes can feed a man with wisdom. At first, nobody wanted to deal with me. The women in the market knew my face from the slums. "Na that Banga boy," they whispered. Some chased me away, some insulted me, some just looked at me with pity, which hurt even more. But hunger is a stubborn teacher. One day, I carried a trader's heavy sack for free. Another day, I washed tomatoes for a mama who was too tired. Little by little, they began to notice me. "This boy no bad so," one of them said, and so began my hustle. I would sweep stalls, carry loads, run errands. Some gave me coins, some gave me food. It wasn't much, but it was a seed. And in the slums, a seed is everything. One afternoon, after weeks of hustling, I held in my hand 1,000 francs. It looked small to the world, but to me, it was a mountain of gold. I didn't smoke it away. I didn't drink it. I walked to the roadside, bought granules and sachet water, and became a seller myself. It was not glory. People still laughed at me, from vandal to water boy. They jeered. But I didn't care. Every bottle I sold, every coin I collected was proof that I was not the same Humphrey anymore. I remembered the plans I had built in prison. Step by step, I told myself, from water to groundnuts, from groundnuts to bread, from bread to something bigger. But the streets do not forgive. Old friends saw me working hard and they mocked me. They called me weak, called me sellout. One night, two of them came to me. "Humphrey, you think saying a business go save you? Forget. We get a job, quick money, just one night." They wanted me to join a robbery. I refused. I told them that life don't kill enough of us. I don't want it. That same week, I heard one of them had been caught and beaten by the mob until his bones broke. The other was shot dead running from the police. Their blood was a reminder I could have been there. I could have been lying in the gutter. The more I worked, the more I grew. From selling water, I moved to roasting fish by the roadside. From fish, I bought second-hand clothes in bulk and sold them piece by piece, what we called the okrika. My body was tired, but my spirit was awake. I started saving, not just eating. I learned how to talk to customers, how to smile even when my stomach hurt, how to make people trust me. One day, a trader I had once helped called me aside. "Humphrey," she said, "I see you. You be strong boy. Take this." She handed me 5,000 francs as a gift. I nearly cried, not because of the money, but because someone finally believed in me. Years passed. The slum boy became a man. My stall grew into a small shop. My shop grew into a business. I began to employ other street boys. Boys who were just like I once was, lost, rejected, hungry. People no longer called me that Banga boy. They called me Boss Humphrey. Even my family, who once turned their faces from me, began to come around. My mother cried when she saw my shop. My father shook my hand in silence. But I never forgot the days of the uncompleted building, the taste of prison food, the sound of chains. I carried that memory like a scar on my soul. Now I speak, not as a victim, but as a witness. I tell my story because there are still many boys in the gutters smoking away their future, believing the streets will save them. The truth is bitter. The streets have no love. The gangs have no loyalty. The drugs have no mercy. Only sweat, only hunger, only discipline can save a man. I tell them, if Humphrey from the slums, the ex-convict, the reject, the banger boy can rise, then you too can rise. But you must kill the old life before it kills you. The slums gave me pain. Prison gave me silence, but rejection gave me strength. And now, when I sit in my shop at sunset, watching the same streets that once spat me out, I whisper to myself, from the gutter I built my crown. They told me not to go. Hey, you can't go that side. That place no day for marble. The old taximan squinted through his cracked windshield, engine idling as if to emphasize the pole. People go, they no come back. But I laughed, not arrogantly, just because of disbelief. I was raised in the city. I had heard of superstition and local myths, but nothing scared me anymore. War had hardened me. Poverty had humbled me. What could possibly exist out there in that forested nowhere that I hadn't already been shown on television or posted online? I waved the driver off and slung my backpack over my shoulder. If I no come back, tell them I enter Inside Story. The red dirt path curled like a serpent through thick green wilderness. At first, it was silent, too silent. No birds, no insects, not even wind. Just the crunch of my steps and the strange feeling that the trees were watching me. The sun dimmed prematurely. A mist rose from the ground. That was when I noticed the first oddity. Carvings on the trees, symbols I couldn't understand. Spirals, faces, long-necked animals that didn't look quite natural. And beneath them, ashes, burnt offerings, or remnants of something darker. I should have turned back, but something caught me, a curiosity deeper than fear. And then I arrived. No sign welcomed me, no road led in, but suddenly the path opened, and there it was, a village that felt both ancient and forgotten, a place caught between timelines. The huts were made of stone and bark, unusually round with conical thatched roofs. Children played in silence, not whispering, not laughing, just watching me with wide dark eyes. Women walked, barefoot, carrying gourds on their heads, their faces marked with white clay in patterns too deliberate to be random. The air smelled of smoke and soil. Nobody spoke. Nobody smiled. I approached a man who sat, carving bone into a flute. "Please," I said, "what is this place?" He looked up. His eyes were clouded, milky white. "We no get shame," he said. "This place choose who go see am." I asked for water. He pointed to a hut. I entered. What I saw inside made me freeze. There were no beds, no medical equipment, yet a young girl lay unconscious on a mat of woven reeds. Her skull was open. A small group of elderly women hovered over her, using sharpened bone and dried leaves to perform what I could only describe as surgery. Brain surgery. Beneath the hanging roots of a sacred tree that grew through the hut's floor, I backed away, dizzy. "Na healing," someone said behind me. I turned to see an old woman in a cloak of feathers. Her voice was low, tired. "No money dey here, only purpose. We no need light, we walk with shadow." How do you do this?" She smiled faintly. "You think waiting una dey call modern na the only way? My pikin, wey dey live before una phone, we go still dey when e go die. I wanted to argue, I wanted to scream, but something about the place made resistance pointless. I stayed. Not for hours, not for a day, for weeks. I ate with them, but not before prayer. Their prayers weren't to Jesus or Allah. They spoke to the ones beneath, spirits of the underroot, watchers of the bones. They chanted in a language no one taught me, but which I began to understand in dreams. They lived without money. They traded in energy, in favors, in dreams. A man gifted me a cloak in return for a song I hummed in my sleep. A woman told me I had been there before in another life. At night, I heard chanting from the forest. I followed once. What I saw, people circling a fire, naked, painted ash. Some danced like they were possessed, others cried blood, real blood. They summoned something that bent the trees, made the ground shake. A face appeared in the fire and all of them bowed. The face didn't have eyes, it had mouths. The next morning, I couldn't speak. The elder with the wide eyes visited me. Now you see, this no be village, this na portal. Portal to what? I asked. To who we be? Before una camera dey show every secret, before light kill mystery, before truth die for laugh. One of the strangest things was the children. I saw a boy every day who wore the same torn trousers, who always held a carved lion. One day I asked how old he was. He go soon reach 200 seasons. Someone said, what? He know the age. Some of them dey born for in between. Time no touch them. I laughed, thinking it a joke. But after 2 weeks, I realized no child grew, no one aged, no hair turned gray. This place, it held time in its palm and folded it. I started to forget the date. I forgot my name. They called me Mbaku now, he who crossed. Then came the night of screams. The wind howled like a dying lion. The sky turned to red. The villagers all went into their huts and shut their eyes. I didn't understand the warning. I stayed outside. A tree split open. A tall figure crawled out, long limbs like spider legs, face covered in gold, hanging from ropes. It dragged a bell made of skulls. Every time it rang, something inside me shook. It looked straight at me. Then it whispered, "You no suppose be here." It vanished. I was found in the morning under the tree naked, body covered in marks that glowed under moonlight. The elders didn't touch me. They sang to me for hours before I awoke. "You crossed line," the elder said, "but the ones choose you still." 3 nights later, I went to the river to cleanse. The water shimmered unnaturally, and when I knelt to scoop it, it pulled me in, not drowning me, more like baptizing. Voices rose from beneath, not from fish or spirit, from ancestors. "You belong to dust and bone," they said. "You forget too much. Now remember." They showed me flashes of wars, rituals, sacrifices, kings who turned to ash, gods with clay skin. I came out soaked in voices. My eyes no longer saw in one color. I saw timelines. I saw truth behind smiles. The villagers never asked what I saw. They only nodded. They told me I must leave or become part of the soil. "You stay too long, you go belong." I packed nothing. My shoes had melted. My phone dead. My memory shaky. They gave me one last thing, a gold with carvings that pulsed like breathing skin. "If you open them, you go remember." but you no go fit come back. I walked back the way I came, no path, no signs. It took me 5 days to reach a road. When I asked where I was, the farmer looked at me confused. That village, my papa say e no dey again since 1902. I returned to noise, to horns, glass, screens. People laughed about the damn things, Instagram likes, cheap drama, bad weather. I sat in rooms where everyone spoke but no one listened. My friends asked where I had been. I traveled, they never knew. At night, I couldn't sleep. I would hear drums from nowhere. Shadows would crawl behind the curtains. I tried church. I tried therapy. Nothing worked. One day, I took off my shirt and looked in the mirror. The marks, the ones from that night, still glowed faintly. They formed a shape, the tree, the one from the surgery hut, the one that split. It wasn't fading, it was growing. Each time I ignored it, I would vomit shadows, so I stopped ignoring. I listened, and the gold began to pulse again. I opened the gold. Inside was not liquid, it was sound. It said, "Come back, not with feet, but with fire." That night, I drew the village, not from memory, but as if I were there. Every detail, every soul. I painted the face in the fire, then the tree, then the God beneath it. It smiled. My house burned the next morning. No one found the cause, only ash remained, and in the ash, the same markings. So now I live alone. Oh, not alone, with the voices. I eat before I snap. I turn off the light before I pray. I speak in a tongue that only the earth understands, because I know now I am part of the village that should not exist. And someday, someone like you will read this. You will wonder, you will feel the urge to go. If you do, don't stay past 12 months, or you will belong to. The sun hung low over the horizon, painting the southeastern Cameroonian landscape in molten gold. I had grown up in Yaoundé, accustomed to the chaotic noise of markets, cars and radios, yet something about the deep, dense forest around Temo whispered a warning that my city-bred mind could not ignore. I had no urgent business here. I only wanted to stretch my legs, to walk beyond the village boundaries where the earth smelled richer, where the trees leaned close as if guarding secrets. But from the first steps, I felt an unseen gaze, something lurking beyond the shrubs, observing the outsider with measured patience. By midday, the forest thickened, branches clawing at my sleeves, roots threatening to trip me. The chirping of birds had vanished, only the faint rustle of leaves and an occasional snapping branch accompanied by steps. Then, the first sign, footprints in the red soil, too small to be adult but too deliberate to be a child's play. I followed them, curiosity biting deeper than fear. A faint chant reached me, low, guttural, almost indistinguishable from the whispering wind. It drew me forward, my feet moving of their own accord. And then I saw the village. Ntemo was not on any map. Its hut, round and thatched, lay scattered along the forest floor, appearing almost overnight as if sprouting from the earth. Smoke spiraled lazily from fires, and the faint smell of burning herbs tinged the air. But what struck me most was silence, not the peaceful quiet of nature, but the absence of laughter, the absence of voices that should belong to children, to families. I approached the hut where an elderly woman swept ash from the doorway. "Good day," I said, trying to sound cheerful. Her eyes, dark and wet with age, met mine with a weight I could not read. "They are gone," she said simply. "Gone to the forest, gone to the soil, gone to no one." I asked what she meant. People who stay too long outside the village, people who whisper too much, who question too much, they vanish. Sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't, but their bodies always missing. A chill crawled along my spine. I had entered a village where disappearance was normal, where absence was a language everyone understood. That night, sleep eluded me. I wandered near the edge of the forest, drawn by rhythmic drumming that throbbed like a heartbeat. Shadows swayed in a firelit clearing. Figures danced naked, painted with red clay and white ash, their faces contorted in ecstasy and fear. I crouched behind a bush, watching as the villagers moved in precise, terrifying harmony. In the center lay a mat, and atop it a figure. A man, bound, eyes wide, lips trembling. The dancers circled him, chanting words I could not understand. Yet, each syllable carried power. The air shimmered, almost alive. I realized, with horror, that this was a ritual of consumption, not only of flesh, but of spirit. They were taking more than life, they were taking essence. Compelled by a mix of fear and fascination, I ventured deeper the next day. I found the first trees, small, shallow, graves freshly dug, yet the soil above them was oddly firm. I have burnt gold, a half-burnt gold, with strange symbols lay beside them. Blood streaked the ground, faint but unmistakable. I stumbled across a circle of bones arranged in geometric patterns. Some were human, small, delicate. Others, I could not tell. Then I saw the evidence that froze my blood. A tree, its trunk slid open and blackened at the edges. And inside, remnants of ritual. Torn clothing, fetishes, and dried pieces of flesh arranged like offerings. I realized the villagers were not just superstitious, they were practitioners of invisible feasting. People disappeared, their bodies consumed, but the act remained unseen by the casual eye. Later, I met a boy, perhaps 10 years old, eyes too knowing for his age. He beckoned me into a hut, whispering, "They eat them," he said. Not always fire, not always in knife, sometimes with shadow, sometimes only the heart disappears. You see them, they are gone, you hear nothing, you smell nothing, but you feel it in your chest. I pressed him for more, but he only shook his head and touched his forehead. They warned me, "You should leave." I sought answers from the village council. They met in a circle of smoke, their faces hidden by carved masks. When I asked about the missing villagers, one spoke, "Speak not of what must remain. Some truths eat those who utter them." I realized then that even the elders, protectors of history and culture, feared the consequences of knowledge. In Tamil, silence was a survival tool, a shield against the wrath of those who consumed invisibly. Night fell again. I could not resist. I hid in the trees, watching the ritual unfold. Figures moved with supernatural precision, carrying knives that gleamed under the torchlight. The man from last night was again bound in the center, eyes wide in terror. The chanting grew louder, almost deafening, and then the air seemed to ripple. I saw a shadow detach itself from the bodies, crawling, bending, merging into the man in the center. His screams were silent to all except me. The ritual concluded. The body was gone. Only a faint stain remained on the mat. My stomach churned. This was horror incarnate, a feast unseen, but felt deeply. I tried to leave, but Ntemo's forest is alive. Its paths twist, coil, and shift. Shadows stretched longer than they should. Figures emerged silently from the dark. I ran, branches clawing at my skin, roots tripping me. I heard whispers behind me, promises and threats, all in one breath. Somehow I reached the river, lungs burning, but I knew they followed, even if unseen. The invisible fist had marked me as witness. The river shimmered in moonlight, willing to shrink. I saw faces in the water, victims, spirits, people who had vanished. They whispered their names, their pain and their pleas. A cold hand seemed to touch my mind. Remember us, do not forget. The water's reflection showed not only my face but the shadowy figures from the rituals, bending and writhing beneath the surface. I could not hide forever. The cultists tracked me relentlessly, their footsteps soundless, their knives glinting in the moonlight. Using the forest's secret, I set traps, snares, pits covered with leaves, sharpened sticks hidden beneath moss. One by one they fell, but each death left a lingering echo, a spiritual backlash that made the night pulse with malevolent energy. The final confrontation was near the tallest tree in the forest, its branches blackened with fire and ritual ash. I fought with every tool, every ounce of strength, until the last figure collapsed, silently, eyes wide in disbelief. Victory was hollow. Even after I survived, even after some cultists lay defeated, the forest itself seemed cursed. The shadows shifted unnaturally. Voices whispered from every hollow, every tree. I realized the ritual's power was not merely human, it was ancestral, spiritual, and eternal. The victims' essence had been bound into the land, their cries feeding in horror that would continue long after the living departed. Authorities eventually intervened. Investigations were made, bodies exhumed, arrests carried out, yet the forest remained. Some villagers returned, but many refused to live near Ntemo again. I left, carrying the weight of what I had seen. The invisible feast, though partially exposed, remained, and in my dreams, the shadows of the consumed whispered, waiting for the next witness, the next traveler who dared walk into Ntemo's dark heart.